We don't make it easy for people of other races to like us. We're always scolding. We're always accusing. We kill, we murder. We accuse them for all our problems. Even if they hit their wives, they say it's because of apartheid that I smack her. I was cross, I was mad, I was insane. They drove me to it. No. Find the fault within yourself, black man. Find the fault within yourself. If people don't love you, it's because maybe you make it difficult to love you.
Hello, my name is Donald, and welcome to the #1 media company, WorldView. At WorldView, we explore everyone's perspectives on all things that can broaden our worldview. Today, we're talking with Peter Marais. Peter is the former Premier of the Western Cape, the former Mayor of Cape Town, and he is currently a member of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament representing the Vryheidsfront Plus. Peter, welcome. It's great to speak to you.
Good morning, Donald. It's an honor to be on the show.
Peter, so I want to start this conversation on a light note. I saw on your interview with Nuusport, I mean light note in a sort of a sarcastic sense, but I saw in your interview with Nuusport, you mentioned that things were better during apartheid, at least some things, than they are now. Do you think that's the case?
Well, yes. You see, I always compare to something my dad once told me. He said, you see that dog, he's chasing this car, okay? And when he catch up, when the driver stops, this dog doesn't know what to do with the car. He starts biting the tires. He'll wreck the car, but he can't drive the car. Be careful that you don't ask for more powers than you are capable of utilizing. And what we have here is a situation where we're always shouting, the Busak fraternity and all of them was thinking this is the panacea of all our problems. All we need is majority rule, blacks in control, and then we will have overflow of jobs and electricity and water and houses, and every problem will be solved. It's not so, it's not so. We caught the car, but we haven't learned how to drive the car. Now we wreck it.
And yes, please continue.
The one thing that the nationalists did wrong, the National Party tried to become petty. They tried a model of self-determination. They tried a model of to say, listen, put each of these cultural ethnic groups who are minorities in charge of their own affairs. But that would have worked. But when P.V. Botha came to the point, what about general affairs? And I know P.V. Botha for a long time because he took a special liking to me because of my forthrightness with him. He appointed me to his Economic Advisory Council in the 81, 82. I was also on the President's Council of P.V. Botha, Deputy Chairperson of Constitutional Matters. So P.V. Botha, when it came to general affairs, there's issues that affect all the minority groups equally. He decided, I'm not going to give the Coloreds and the Indians a veto on what I decide. I'm the boss. There we vote. Everything else, its own affairs. They can decide whether how the education system should look. They can decide on local government. They can decide on land issues. That is the Colored House and the Indian House. But when there's anything the three houses don't agree on, the white parliament had the final say. That's where his policy failed. And when P.V. Botha established the TBVC states in the 60s, the Transkei, Botswana, Venda, Ciska, making them autonomous states. He refused to let those states be developed economically with white capital. He said, no, the black people must find the money themselves. We can't let white people own property in these states. So these people couldn't develop economically. That's a second mistake he made. His whole idea came on to a policy of confederalism. He wanted confederal states. He thought he can have United States of South Africa with Transkei, with Botswana, Venda, Ciskei, Gangwani, Kwandebele, KwaZulu. All those are African states. And he didn't have an answer what to do with the Peter Marais. I'm neither black, neither white, but I'm a human. And how do I fix this problem? PV Botha failed. He didn't have the answer what to do with me, Peter Marais, the colored man.
And what is the answer? What should he have done?
He should simply have said, we have the General Assembly, that is the parliaments. Okay, the General Assembly can vote on issues, but there's a veto right given to the Security Council. Right, and he could have had a council of the colored, the Indians, and the white parliament, where each one of them have a veto. If they want to say that we bring back the Mixed Marriages Act, we could have vetoed it. If they wanted to bring in job reservation that negatively affected the Indians or the coloreds, we could have vetoed it. But we couldn't veto anything because they wanted to be the boss, the jury, the judge, the prosecutor. That's where PV. But I think PV Botha himself wasn't the person who decided. It was his cabinet, because long after PV Botha retired, he called me to his house there at his house, and he said to me, hy wil vir my sien, ek wil jou sien, Pieter, jy kan jou vroukies aanbring. Ja. And we had a nice chat, him and me, and I left, I won't now about what we said there, but when I left, before I left, I said, Mr. Botha, is there anything you did in your long political career that you regret having done, that you would have done differently? And he answered me in Afrikaans. Hy sê, ek moes meer na God geluister het en nie na mens nie. And that told me his cabinet moved him in a direction that he was forced to take. But we all blame him. We don't blame the guys around him like we blame Ramaphosa today and not the guys around Ramaphosa. We need a coalition of leaders. No domination. If minorities are going to come together and form, like Corne Mulder says, a rainbow coalition, we must make sure that these minority groups and their leaders have an equal value attached to their opinion. My opinion must have the same value as the opinion of my white opposition. Then we can go somewhere, a coalition of leaders. That is the future. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter, if we can fast forward a bit, the National Party, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the National Party became the New National Party, and it melded with the Democratic Alliance. And there was quite a consternation during that period between you and the New National Party and the Democratic Alliance. And Helen Zille, in her book, she said that the New National Party, that the problem with this organization is that it was quite an old and elitist organization full of cronies and cronyism. Do you agree with that assessment?
I have a lot of respect for Helen Zille. I had many talks with her, and on most issues we agreed. In fact, she's like me, she agreed she's a federalist. But here I think it's a 50-50. 50% she's correct, 50% she's wrong. You see the Afrikaner, I have a long association with them. They straight talkers. The DA is not straight talkers. They are soft whisperers. You know, they will come into little groups and they will decide something, but they won't say that in open, and very suave in how they address it. The Natchez people will tell you where to get on, where to get off, and if you don't like it, then dump it, and he walks away. The DA couldn't handle that. They were too sophisticated. They would stand at a function with a tissue in their hand and wipe the corners of their mouth after they've eaten. The Afrikaner would wipe his mouth with his hand, with a backhand. And it might sound, but I like the Afrikaner. He's an earthly man. He's a man van die aarde. And that is why he found an ally in the colored community. Because basically, we're the same people. We're the same people with a different skin. And so I don't think South Afrikaner build whatever is in this country he built. Come on, let's face it. Let's not trick each other here. When Afrikaner came here, yes, the Khoi was here, yes. He found them, yes, and all other groups. But he didn't find universities here. He didn't find hospitals here. He didn't find Eskom and ESCO, the Nels here. There was nothing like that. There was only bush and animals you can hunt. And he built everything up. And now after he's achieved all this, now the people at here say, come on, let's vote. Who's this all this? Who's going to take charge? Let's vote. And one Afrikaner told me, I think it was John Wynne, he's passed on already. He was, I think he was more conservative than the National Party. It was a conservative party. He gave me this example. We were chatting, we were sitting nicely chatting, having a Scotch whiskey in the President's Council. And I wanted to know, why did you come to the point where you want racial segregation? And he said to me, but in Afrikaans, I said, Peter, he said to me, if you have a house and you got 5 bedrooms and you have 3 bathrooms, but it's only you and your wife and 1 child, and now here comes a family, you pity them, they have nothing, but here's a large family, and you give him 2 rooms in your house and you say, you can stay here, okay. And you feed them and you give them work. And now after 10, 15 years, this man with the 12 children tell you, hey, let's vote. Whose house is this? He says, would you agree that I must let him vote? Him and his children all can have a vote now. It's only me and my wife and 1 child, and he's got 4 wives and he's got 12 children. Can they now vote whose house? That's democracy, he tell me. He said to me, democracy always counts the hands that's raised. Democracy never measures the brain of the man who raised the hand. And that set me thinking. The Afrikaner is hot-headed. He's conservative. He don't easily give in. You've got to convince him. You've got to convince him logically that your ideas is an improvement of what he's been used to think all his life. If you can't do that, if you can't win his respect, he'll never be your friend. I think I've won the Afrikaners' respect. That's why Chris Yunus, P.V. Botha's right-hand man, he appointed me on commissions to revamp the public service. PV put me on his Economic Advisory Council, all those positions, because I'm a straight talker, but I'm a realist. I am a radical, but I'm a pragmatic radical. I play on the soccer field. I don't sit in the stadium and pelt the players and boo them and throw tomatoes at them because I don't like the way they play the game. I get involved in the game and I outwit them. I beat them. I score goals against them. I win their respect.
Peter, if you're a straight talker, do you believe the new National Party was a bit corrupt?
I think corruption is endemic in any society. They are open to corruption because when you're in a capitalist society, money rules. Money rules, and you must have great ethical standards not to submit to it. Now, I remember that in the time of Dr. Ruedi, he founded the Citizen newspaper. Now, I come a long way in politics. I'm in politics since 1969. Ruedi founded the newspaper and he took it with state money, government money. That was corruption. So I would say yes, corruption, anybody may make a mistake and fall in the hands of corruptees. But I wouldn't say that the National Party in totality was corrupt. I just say that we have more checks and balances now to sniff out corruption. There was no checks and balances those days. As far as I know, all these Chapter 9 institutions wasn't there. Public protector and human rights, and those were not there. So corruption could have taken place without anybody knowing.
On that note, do you believe, many say that one of the reasons South Africa is so corrupt today is because the National Party lacked institutions that held them back, that controlled them. And they're saying it's basically because there was a lack of accountability during National Party, there's a lack of, during apartheid, there's a lack of accountability today. So do you think that's an argument that holds water, that because there was a lack of accountability in the past, that's why we're so corrupt today, the national government?
The ANC must decide whether they drive a car where the rear view mirror is larger than the windscreen. They're always looking in the rear view mirror to justify what they are doing. They got no vision. And as far as I know, any car's windscreen is 100 times larger than the rear view mirror. You must focus on where you're going. You must stop focusing on where we come from. If we use that example, then we must also go back to the Middle Ages, where if you want a wife, you take her by the hair, knock her over the head, and drag her to your cave. Is that what we are saying? Because that happened then. That's why now we must also go and find a nice woman, knock her over the head, and drag her by the hair to your house. We won't say that. So why use the national park and what happened then as an excuse? I can tell you one thing, the National Party had separate development. The ANC have selective development. What you doing? They only wanted to develop blacks. They came with a policy when I was Minister for Health in the Western Cape. That was 1996, before 95, 96. Flamini Zuma, she was a national minister of health. She came with a policy of right-sizing, downsizing. I said, what is this right-sizing, downsizing? They wanted to rid the Western Cape of all its white nurses and colored nurses. So they said, no, it's too big. There's too many nurses at our hospitals. We're going to downsize, give them a parting packages, they can leave. The longer you in a nurse, the bigger was your package. And I objected and I fought with her at MINMEC meetings. She'd be losing the best nurses we had because you offer them money to leave. And what they did, they brought in new recruits, black nurses. That's why Western Cape hospitals, I think, is 70, 80% black nurses. But they're not as qualified as those who left. Now, that is selective development. So how is selective development different to separate development? The National Party is the mirror in which the ANC sees itself. Because only thing they now have is I can sit on the same bench as a white man. Man, that's no issue with me. Give me my own bench. Why? I don't want his bench. I'm talking about money. Educate our people the same way you educated your. When I was a young man, I asked my father, I said, Dad, I was still young, I was about 9, 10. And I had a great respect for my father. I said, why is it everywhere the white people are in charge, Dad? They give orders and you must just do what they say. Look, they here, they the inspectors, they there. I was inquiring. My father said, my child, because they are better educated and trained and they have much more money than we have. That stuck with me. They're better educated and trained and they have more money than me. So he told me, so if you want to be equal to them, you'll have to educate yourself, you'll have to study, do your schoolwork, and don't put your nose into politics. My mother encouraged me to go into politics. My father wanted me to carry the Bible. He was elder in church, and his principles is guided by biblical commands. He said, as die Here jou wil 'n job gee, kan niemand dit stop nie. As hy dit nie wil gee nie, kan niemand vir jou die job gee nie. In plain language, everything for him was that. So, to come back, I think we give too much credit to the white man's racist attitudes towards us, and too little attention to what we were willing to do to succeed in spite of apartheid. I succeeded in spite of apartheid. I never told a white man I'm your equal. I went out and I proved it, and I left it to him to tell me, Pieter, jy's aan my slinge, jong. Jy's aan my slinge. Nee, ons kan 'n pad saam stap. We can walk a path together. I didn't have to tell somebody to love me. That wasn't my style. I made it easy for the man to like me. We don't make it easy for people of other races to like us. We're always scolding. We're always accusing. We kill, we murder. We accuse him for all our problems. Even if they hit their wives, they say, oh, because of apartheid that I smack her. I was cross, I was mad, I was insane. They drove me to it. No. Find the fault within yourself, black man. Find the fault within yourself. If people don't love you, it's because maybe you make it difficult to love you.
Yeah, I love that message where you said you proved that you were equal to the white man. That's quite inspiring, that message, that you never believed him, you went about and proved it. But Pieter, so many of your detractors would say that, I mean, I don't know you, I'm just saying what your detractors would say. They would say you're a man without a compass. And I'm going to list to you on Wikipedia the political parties that you have been a part of. The People's Congress.
That always comes up. That's all they've got. And I already answered that question. I've been a member of a lot of parties, but because the parties left me, I didn't leave them. They went on a wrong road. I don't sit on a bus that takes a direction I'm not going to. If I have a ticket and I bought this ticket and I said, I want to go to Durban. Okay, all aboard Durban. They're midway at the R. This driver decides I'm going to Joburg. I'm no more going to Joburg. I'm going to Durban. I'm going to Johannesburg. Should I sit? Should I remain just because I got a ticket? Because of what will the people say who's not even on the bus? When they tell me, sit there. You said you were going with this bus. Why change buses? It doesn't make sense. Political parties all the time change policy, change their ideologies. And if you're a man with strict principles like I am, I'm a Christian, devout. I fight for my language, Afrikaans, fight for minority rights, right? And there's a lot of other things that I believe in. Free market, yes. Capitalism, yes, but with a social conscience towards the poor. Because capitalism is the greatest generator of wealth, but it's a poor distributor of wealth. It takes long for this wealth to trickle down to the bottom. So you need capitalism and socialism to meet each other somewhere along the line. So if I must describe my politics, I would say I'm pragmatic. I do what's possible at a given time. I would say that I'm a Christian values. I would say I'm a Democrat. And I would say also that I am more nationalistic. I'm a federalist, but I'm nationalistic in a sense that ek het 'n liefde vir die Afrikaner, ek het 'n liefde vir die Griekwa, want ek stam met al twee uit. And I want to see the preservation of the values presented by the Griekwa nation. And I believe in the values espoused by the Afrikaner. And I don't apologize for that. So yes, I left the Labour Party of Alan Hendrikse because after Mandela was released from jail, he decided to disband the party and go over to the ANC. So for a lot of colored people said, now where are you going now? But Hendrikse and his two sons joined the ANC. And so that was the end of the of the Labour Party, and most of the members, myself, Gerald Morkel and others, joined the New National Party. Then I was in a New National Party, and then Evie decided he's going to leave politics and bring a young man from the north, which later got the nickname Kortbroek van Schalkwyk, and he made him the leader. But he was out of his depth. He doesn't understand the Cape Townians. Hy het die Kaap geken nie. He came here, they forced him onto us as the new national leader. And I think investors didn't take a liking to him, and the National Party couldn't accumulate funds anymore. We couldn't get money. So what did he say? I must go with a DP and form the DA. The DP got money. And I said, listen here, since when does conservatives form a coalition with liberals? I haven't seen this. Our values are totally different. And I was on this committee who must advise, because I was deputy chair of the Federal Council of the New National Party. I was on this committee who had to advise whether we should go into an alliance with the DA or form one party rather. And I brought out a minority report. And the minority report said, no, water and oil don't mix. I cannot see us going with a DA. This would amount to a white-colored alliance against black people. Why didn't you invite Buthelezi also to join this Democratic Alliance? He's a federalist. Why only a colored party and whites? So Tony took an affront to this. I'm against it, and that is where my troubles with Tony started. In the end, they released me of my position as a member of the cabinet in the Western Cape because of my criticism of the DA and Tony Leon. And then there was a big fallout because I think there was over 5,000 people who signed a petition and want me to be reinstated. And they had to reinstate me 6 months after firing me from the cabinet. I was back on the cabinet. But things between me and the DA was uneasy on my Christian beliefs. And I will tell you what it was. I came back and they asked me to stand in the election as Metro Mayor. I said, why should I? I'm a minister, I earn much more than a Metro Mayor. Why should I not stand? Why do you want me to stand for mayor? Nah, they did their own Markino, Markino they used to find out what does the public think and that surveys. And they said the person who can beat the ANC is Peter Marais. And they asked me, please to stand. Tony even. You can ask him, ask Helen, who asked Peter Marais to stand as the first DA candidate for mayor? They asked me. And when I took the position, I won the mayorship. Because they found out that I have the most support among both colors and whites. And that's how I came on there. But then the whole issue of the LGBTQ came up in the DA. And that was a problem because they wanted to market the city of Cape Town for what they called pink tourism. And they said the JP Smith, who's now on the Exco, they all were supporting this. That a lot of money will come to Cape Town. And they needed a glossy magazine to advertise the Cape. And I said, no. And the TV interviewed me and I said, I will not make Cape Town gay friendly. I'll make it God friendly. And then the LGBTQ community came for me. And in the end, it's a long story. Tony Leon decided he must act against me for that statement. You know that they then terminated my membership of the DA. I stood by my word. I said to Tony, you can find another mayor. I can find another job. But tell me, where will I find another God? And that was the end of that. But a year later, of course, the court reinstated me. The court said the oude alterum partem rule was not observed. They never gave me a chance, the DA, to state my case. There was never an inquiry as to why they must terminate my membership. I was never hauled before the disciplinary committee. I was never said, put your side of the matter. Why didn't you want to market Cape Town for gay tourists specifically? No, I wasn't given the opportunity. Now you tell me, how democratic is a DA if they did that to me? How democratic are they? Well, the end result is the courts reinstated me. By the day that the courts reinstated me, I resigned. I hope my detractors listen to this. I left the DA on principle. And I am a principled man. So, after that, I became premier. So, I got no regrets. There's a song, No Regrets. I once heard it. And that is my favorite song. And the other one is I Did It My Way by Frank Sinatra. There were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, oh, I spat it out. That's me, simple. No pretense. I want any media man, wherever they might be, listening to this. When I entered politics in 1974, and when I left politics in 2004 out of Parliament and came back in 1919 again as an MP, show me one instance where I contradicted myself in terms of policy and where I stand. Show me one instance where I contradicted myself. I challenge any media person that I said something different in 2022 than what I advocated in 1974. So all these parties they talk about, yes, they lost their way. I didn't. I'm still. And if I lost my way, the public wouldn't have made me the first Freedom Front MP in the Cape. Freedom Front tried for 27 years. They couldn't win a seat in the Western Cape. They approached me. I won my seat. And now we got more seats than any time in the Freedom Front's history. People look for honesty and people with principles and integrity. Money is useful. Money is useful, but it's just money.
So yeah, that's fascinating. So essentially you're saying that, like Ronald Reagan said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party left me. So you're saying these parties, they left you. And the Freedom Front Plus, if they stay true to their values now, that's your home for the time being and for the foreseeable future.
For the first time with the Freedom Front, I feel so at home, so happy, so free, so close to top leadership. Myself and Dr. Peter Groenewald can have long conversations on the phone and we can agree on matters. And even when we disagree in such a manner that we enrich each other. Corne Mulder and myself, he is the leader in the Western Cape, he's deputy in the Western Cape. And we get along like a house on fire. I've never felt so happy in a political party like right now. And remember, in 1992 already, Evie made me a minister. Not after Mandela was released. No, 92. I was minister of the Cape Province. All three provinces I was minister. Because then the West, it was a Cape Province consisting Northern, Eastern, and Western Cape. 1994, I was Minister of Health. 1996, Minister of Local Government. 1997, 98, I was Minister for Social Services and Poverty Alleviation. 2000, I was Mayor of Metro, and 2001, I was Premier. I should have picked up something along the way, and that's what I started out with. I ran after knowledge and experience. My goal wasn't money when I entered politics. I wanted to know everything the white man knew and more about how to run a country, how to run local government, how to be productive, how to create jobs. He knew all these things. He had a better education than us. Let's face it. Whose fault it is? I'm not going to go into that now. Of course, apartheid education, the whites had a better education than we had. I know that. But in spite of that, I won. Martinez was never the Metro Mayor. Neither Tony. Tony de Leon was never a premier. So what does he talk about? Tony de Leon was never even a councillor or a mayor or premier. What can he teach me? I'll teach him. I show the white man, I'm your equal. You better believe it. But I respect him for what he's done. And I'm sure if they give this country over now to the National Party or the Freedom Front, we'll fix the problems within 2 or 3 years. We'll fix the problems. But we won't give it back because they will just mess it up again.
Peter, okay, that's great, and it absolutely sounds like you did it your way, like the song. But I want to move on to Cape Independence. Peter, opinion polling shows that most DA supporters in the Western Cape support Cape Independence, yet the DA is lukewarm on this issue. Why don't they vote for your party? All these voters that are voting for the DA that support Cape Independence.
I think the DA and the Freedom Front, behind the scenes, are closer together on these policy matters than what meets the eye. That's all I want to say. Mandela told me, and that is one man who also had a lot of faith in me. The ANC couldn't understand it, the function, and leave it off. He came walking with me, hooked in his arm, he hooked me in. That photo was front page in the newspapers. And he told Trevor Manuel and all these guests there, Peter Marais is my friend in his committee.
I love your accent, it's perfect.
And he said to them, if he had a lot of appointments lined up, but when I found him and asked him, invited him, he decided to cancel all the appointments to be there. The first time I met Mandela, as was at the Codessa when we had these negotiations. And I saw all the people running. I was standing there at where the discussion talks was going to take place. And I saw, what's happening here? So it was Mandela that arrived. And he saw the press running and everybody running with phones, taking photos and the TV cameras. And he came with his entourage, and I was standing about, say, 20 meters away. Do you know that he actually looked in my direction and walked straight to me? I'll never forget that day. That's the first time I set eyes on him. He came to me, he looked me in the eye and he said, "Ha, Peter Marais, at last we met. Young man, you must help me to fix this country." That was the first word. He had that way of speaking. And after that, we met about 4 or 5 times for private discussions. And one thing I learned from him. He said, beware of the tyranny of the majority. Beware of the tyranny of a majority. He also said to me, you must learn from the Afrikaner. They are a very disciplined people, he said. Whether you agree with them or not. They are very disciplined. My people are ill-disciplined. His own words. Mandela had talks with P.V. Botha even before he was released to Robben Island. Private talks. And by the way forward. Mandela also told me, don't worry if they call you a colored, Peter. On Robben Island, they called me a colored also. And they called Walter Sisulu a colored. I said, why? He said, Walter Sisulu's father was a Scotsman. His mother was a Kozo. I said, and you, Madiba? I said, well, my father was Xhosa, but my mother was Griqua. Now, what are we talking about? Bloodlines. Why do we make this an issue? He's colored. He's almost colored. He's white. And that one almost look white. Look at your heart. Look, what is it that you want out of life? Which God do you serve? What language do you speak? What standards do you uphold? Those are issues to me, mean much more than the color of a person I have. Much. I was first also taken affront when I saw a white young man coming to visit my daughters. Look at beautiful daughters and granddaughters. And I had to, within myself, say, isn't this what you wanted all the time? Didn't you want to know? You can't now ask your daughters, who's this young man coming here? Is he genuine? Does he really? No. Let them make their own choices. Tell me who's a colored. Piet Korenhoff got a colored woman, so he's got twins that's colored. Right? Piet Korenhoff, before he died. Then you get Kolisi, white girl, colored, children. Dali Tambo, Oliver Tambo's son, married a white woman, colored children. I met them. Now, I almost sang a song. It's raining coloreds, hallelujah. It's raining coloreds, amen. We are going to see what's going to happen in the next 20, 30, 40 years. The majority of people in the Western Cape is going to be olive skinned. You know the word colored? Van Riebeeck them called the people that they met here copper colored. They said we were copper colored because this color, they're not black. And the National Apartheid took away copper and just called us colored. But the Dutch said we were copper colored. And this population we call colored. What do you think the Western Cape and Northern Cape is going to look like over the next 50 years? White is minimizing, less and less. Because if I look here in Durbanville, everywhere you see mixed couples. Everywhere you see mixed couples. Even Emo Adams, he's got a white wife. Everybody's now mixing. And they proudly displaying their offspring, their children. We must save Afrikaans. We must save our Christian way of life. We must save our values. We must save the Afrikaner's history. He's got a proud history. Why want to destroy the history of another tribe? We're all African tribes. The Afrikaner in English is African. He belongs here. He's part here. He built this country. He is a hard worker. He's a stubborn man. But he's also prepared, if you have a good argument, to lend you an ear. I admire them. I didn't admire apartheid. No. I said apartheid was wrong. It was a plan that misfired. It was a plan based on confederalism, but they didn't have an answer for the colors. And Foster said himself, he said, the issue of colored people will have to be resolved by our children, because he didn't have an answer. He said, ons kinders sal eendag daarna moet kyk. Het jy antwoord gehad nie? That's why I once said in the Argus wrote the whole page. I said, man, all men are born colored.
Do you, Peter, do you think, therefore, that Cape independence is the answer to the, quote, colored problem?
Cape independence, there's a lot of things that must precede that. You see, South Africa is a country of cultural, linguistic minorities. South Africa is... There is not one group that constitutes a majority. That's a lie. The Zulus is a minority. The Xhosas are a minority because We almost 50 million. They are a minority of the 50 million. The Wenders is a minority. Afrikaner, everybody. So the ANC tricked us. They put all the Nguni tribes together and renamed them black. So now we talk about a black majority because neither of them is a majority. Even the colored people are more than the Wenders and the Pondos, but because they group themselves with the Zulus and the Khoisas, they say we are a black majority. So that is why other ethnic minorities have to come together, just like the Zulus, Khoisas, and Pondos and Wenders came together, and the Swazis. It's right that we should bring together other minorities that don't consider themselves African black. The ANC has become just a poor carbon copy of a national party, and we have to break that power block. And you see the splinter groups, you see Action SA, you see Bantu Olomisa's UDM, you see COPE, they splinter groups, but they will never make it because the ANC's grand scheme is they send, what do you call that? They send spies into these parties to join them, Trojan horses. And they wreck these parties from inside. And Terra Lakota thought, he's got it now, hey, he's got a party. And all those people who joined him left within a year and destroyed the party.
Do you think that's the fate that awaits Action SA?
Excuse me?
Action SA, do you think that's what's gonna happen to Action SA as well, Herman Mashaba's party?
Yes, I think so. Herman Mashaba is a party that's in the north. He's got no basis in the Western Cape or other provinces, only Gauteng. The same with Agang. Came with much fanfare. Rampela, Mampela. They didn't survive. Nah, these splinter groups, the ANC's got a grand scheme. They tell 100 or more of their supporters to join that party. And everything they discuss is come back to the ANC. They know all their plans. And the ANC just wrecked them. Within a month, they wrecked. They argue, they fight. The ANC will remain. What we need is that we've got to, there's certain questions we first got to ask ourselves before we get to independence. We need a new front and seek independence as a separate national authority where we constitute the majority. If majority rule is going to be the criteria, we've got to find out where are we a majority. If that's going to be the standard, you can only rule if you're the majority. It makes sense then to do your analysis and say, now where are Afrikaans speakers? White and colored the majority? And that's a Western Cape. So that's what we must go for. But there are certain things we need to do. I had a meeting with Yasser Arafat just in 1996. Yasser Arafat, the PLO president, came to South Africa. I was lucky, I had a one-on-one with him. He stayed there at the Grace Hotel in Cape Town. Never seen so many bodyguards with semi-automatic rifles who guarded him before I could get near him. A lot of things I learned from him. He fought also for Palestinian independence. He died without seeing it. But we need to open a secret communication channel first. There must be a secret negotiation channel between the Freedom Front Plus and those who support him for independence and the ANC. Because the first thing that's going to happen is going to be a lot of leakage and it will destroy leaks. This one said that, that one said that. Then we must decide who will emerge as the chief negotiating authority. Who's going to be that group that negotiates with the ANC? Is it Cape Party, Freedom Front, is it DA, if they want federal autonomy? There is the Cape Exit, all these groupings. We've got to find out who will be the chief negotiating authority amongst them. How will the map look for this autonomy? Is it the present Western Cape boundaries? Do you think that will be acceptable to the ANC? Are there going to be tweaks on that? How will the final map look? We've got to make sure that we know how the final map will look. Will parts of Northern Cape also become part of an enlarged Western Cape? Because remember, Northern Cape and Western Cape were the Cape Colony prior to 1910. Britain made us a union. There was no Union of South Africa before 1910. There were the Boer republics of Free State and Transvaal. There was Natal and there was the Cape Colony. And then Britain decided on its own to merge all four and call it the Union of South Africa. And remember what happened to the Union of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union broke up in 15 countries, split away. Now Russia is left on its own. Why can't it happen here? Why can't it happen here? It happens in Russia. You have Canada. Quebec is a French province in Canada. Quebec is French in every aspect. And the British don't try and force on Quebec English values or names of streets or what. They do it their way. With any agreement, there's always a point where the leaders shake hands. Right? Yeah, we got a deal. Where was that deal made? Let me tell you where that deal was made for independence for the Afrikaans speakers. It was made at Codesa. It was made at the Turnholler negotiations. When the ANC, Mandela, Joe Slovo, and Mbeki, and the Freedom Front, not the DA, Freedom Front, signed an accord called Article 235. That's when the ANC crossed their Rubicon on the right of Afrikaner independence. Isn't it so? They crossed the Rubicon then. They agreed, put that clause in, that you have the right, any community who share common culture and language within a given geographic territory can have self-determination, but it must be placed there through legislation by national parliament. It must be authorized, right? So the ANC mustn't think this is something that's subject to renegotiation. The negotiations is over. The Freedom Front, Dr. Corne Mulder and Ramaphosa shook hands. That is the deal. It was signed. The African Congress, they only realize now that they agree to the possibility of autonomous states or federal autonomy for communities who want them. They agreed on that. So we're not going to negotiate that again. We're going to agree now on where's the dots, where's the commas, where's the full stops. The point is, can both of these parties come out of such negotiations with their dignity and honor intact? That's a major question. There must be a win-win situation. Because if the ANC think they're losing support to the red faction and to the EFF, they're going to dig in their heels. We mustn't make it for the ANC the only alternative that they must link up with the EFF. We're going to keep these two apart. That's a dangerous combination.
But Peter, some would argue that what the ANC thinks is irrelevant. It's the Democratic Alliance or the governing party in the Western Cape that you have to convince to achieve Cape independence.
That's foolish talk. That's foolish talk. Nobody ever got secession in this world without bloodshed, without a war. Some of these people had thousands of guns and bombs, and they still didn't get independence. It's not that easy, unless there is a measure of consensus on basic principles. Now, I think the easiest would have been if we went for federal autonomy, because we can show examples. It works in America. They had to decide between confederalism and federalism. The American states decided on federalism. It worked in Germany, it worked in Belgium, it worked in India, it worked in Australia, federalism. It worked in, what you call it, I can't get to the name now, Switzerland, where you have the canton systems. Yeah, it works, and it's the best, most stable democratic government of federalism, where people within one nationalism can still have own cultural values instilled in the province which they control, without being dominated by other cultures, with other values, and have a direct say in the development of its own people. And that is, now the point is, it bothers me is, this is global geopolitical issues that we're trading on those issues. It's not only going to affect South Africa, it will affect BRICS. If the Western Cape should be independent, what about BRICS that South Africa belongs to? Trading and economic agreements, bilateral agreements, or are we going to lean towards America or the European bloc? These are all things that will come onto the table. We can't allow Western Cape to become another Ukraine or Palestine. So we're going to be careful how we handle this. And the other thing that bothers me is, what role would the South African media play? You know, the media is the former, they form public opinion, no matter what we say. In the end, the people say, I read it in the paper myself. It's true. It's true. What is in the media is true. Not what's in a pamphlet of a political party. What that man reads in a newspaper, what the editor said about the feasibility and about whether it should be accepted or not. The editors decide, and they are, I know social media plays a big role nowadays, but we cannot discard the role also played by the traditional media in this, and it will be interesting to know what they will say while talks are ongoing. And both sides will obviously have to make concessions. Both sides, Freedom Front and the others, will have to decide, and the ANC, to what extent will they be prepared to make concessions. You don't go to a negotiating and come out as a winner. No. You come out as somebody who reach an accord based on concessions by both sides.
Except if you're the ANC during the CODESA negotiations, because it seems like the ANC won everything during those negotiations.
No, the ANC didn't win. Money won. Economic investors won. Geopolitical forces over which the National Party had no control. They squeezed us like they're squeezing Russia now. Economics is the railroad. Politics is only the train. Take away the railroad, the train can't run. So the National Party didn't lose. They were defeated by economic forces. It's either this or that. I was there. I was part of FW's negotiating team. Oh, I felt quite honored that he asked me to be on his team, led by Rolf Meyer. If he should never have let Rolf do the negotiation, we had better men than Rolf. Far better men, National Party. They could have led the negotiations, but he trusted Rolf Meyer. And they never put on the table federalism. Today we sit with all the makings of federalism. We have an executive, we have a president. We have a country carved up into 9 provinces. Each of these 9 provinces have their own parliaments. Each of these 9 parliaments have their own lawmaking apparatus and their own budgets. But the ANC tricked us. 90% of the powers the provinces have are concurrent powers with national government. So both can make laws on the same issue, but to the extent that it differs, national law prevails, not provincial law. Oh, I told Windy to his face, the only powers you got, you have powers over abattoirs and cemeteries. That's exclusive powers. You don't have powers over the police. You don't have powers over health services, over local government, nothing, Windy. Don't promise something you can't deliver. And he woke up. And I said, if you want police, extend the metro police. Let's train another 3,000. When I was mayor, introduced metro police in the Cape Metro in 2000. It was the first time they had metro police. I told Winnie, enlarge that. And the DA took my suggestion and they enlarged the metro police by another 3,000 people. And now we have much more police. And I then told them, don't stop there. Part of that force must become highway patrolmen. And they did that. Ask them who made these proposals. I, as Freedom Front MP. Now I said, the highway patrolman is both a policeman and he's also a traffic officer. He can be armed. And they will patrol the N1, N2, the M3, all our national highways, cross borders of municipalities. We've got to pull together the best brains in the DA and the Freedom Front. We are the 2 biggest forces in the Western Cape. We must look at each other as complementary in ideas, complement each other in every respect. Take off our Freedom Front jersey, take off our DA jersey on certain issues and don the Western Province jersey. Let's play for the same team. Let's become a barbarian team, the best out of both for the best positions. Then we win. But the other thing that bothers me, what if the ANC says they'll talk to us, but the Freedom Front must allow the EFF to be part of the talks? So remember, they need the Freedom Front. They need the EFF. The ANC need the EFF if they want to get a 2/3 majority in Parliament on any constitutional changes. So it's going to be a bitter pill for the Freedom Front to swallow or digest, to be seen to make deals with the EFF. Because they're extremists. The demands they may put forward might be unpalatable. So the best I can say is, win the hearts of the people on the principle of federal autonomy for the Western Cape. Win the hearts of people in other provinces too. Maybe I was a member of the KwaZulu-Natal and Daba in the 80s. And where Buthelezi wanted federal autonomy for KwaZulu, and Chris Yunis wouldn't give it. Can we get them on board again? Can we get support from Nkata? Maybe KwaZulu also wants what the Western Cape wants. It will strengthen our hand. We must light the fire and watch it burn. That's what the Freedom Front is doing. We lit the flame of freedom for the Western Cape and Northern Cape. We lit that flame in the hearts of Afrikaans-speaking people, irrespective of color or conference. We are a people. We build. We had a big hand in building this country, right from its foundations to where it is at the moment. We are an extended Afrikaner family. The colors and the Afrikaner, we complement each other. In many ways, it's time to forget the past. It's time to walk the road together as a mean team, fighting for independence, so that our children has a future here. I'm not going to flee. I'm not going to run away. I'm a South African, but above all, I'm an Afrikaanser. I'm here to stay. Deal with me.
Well, Peter, thank you so much. This has been a very inspiring interview, very inspiring message that you just left us. And I see our time is running out. So I want to give you one last opportunity if you want to add anything or answer a question that you'd hope I'd ask you.
Last words. Okay. What the Freedom Front now must do is we must reach the youth. What I notice in the Freedom Front is we have highly intelligent people, highly intelligent, highly qualified, but we need an equally qualified upcoming youth wing of all races. We need a UDF type of conglomerate of thought and opinion from churches, from sport bodies, NGOs. We need to bring them all together. Everybody is not a politician, but everybody wants a better future. Don't have to be a politician to long for a better future. We're going to paint that picture so well that they will think it's something done by the hand of Tretyakov. Let's color in this picture for self-determination so that everybody with a discerning eye can see a future that is not here yet, but fight for it. Independence for the Western Cape. That is the future I long for. And I hope God will give it to me before I close my eyes in the shadow of Table Mountain.
Well, thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for your time. This has been such a great interview. To our viewers, if you've made it this far, please consider liking this video, sharing it as widely as possible, and subscribing to our YouTube channel. You made it this far because you enjoyed it. So that's why I'm saying that. My name is Donald, and you've been watching WorldView.
Thank you, viewers. Thank you, listeners. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure being on the show. Thank you.